Video, I'll be going through the summer 2019 IAP paper 1. Let's make a start. So question 1, only blue cubes and red cubes and yellow cubes are in a box. The table shows the probability of taking a random blue cube from the box. Okay, the number of cubes in the box, the number of red cubes in the box is the same as the number of yellow cubes in the box. Complete the table. So we know that probability adds up to 1. And these two are exactly the same, so we can do 1 minus 0.2, which is 0.8. And since they're both exactly the same, we can do 0.8, divide that by 2, and that's 0.4. So that's 0.4 and 0.4, and all that adds up to 1. Then it says 12 blue cubes are in the box. Look at the total number of cubes in the box. So we know there's 12 blue, and that represents 20%, so 0.2 is the same as 20%, so that's there. So the whole box would represent 100%. Well, how do I go from 20 to 100? I times 5, so I times this side by 5, and that gives me 60. So the answer there becomes 60. Question 2. Dion needs 50 grams of sugar to make 15 biscuits. She also needs 3 times as much flour as sugar. So the sugar to flour ratio is that. And it says 2 times as much butter as sugar. So twice as much butter as sugar. She's going to make 60 biscuits. Work out the amount of flour she needs. So we've been told here that 50 grams of sugar. So 50 grams of sugar makes 15 biscuits. She wants to make 60 biscuits. So to go from 15 to 60 times 4. We do the same on the other side, and that becomes 200 grams. So that's sugar, but it's asking how much flour she needs, and we've got that ratio up here, so we're going to times that by 3. We can do 200 times 3, which is 600 grams, so she needs 600 grams of flour. Dion buys all the butter she needs to make 60 biscuits. She buys butter in 250 gram packs. How many packs of butter does Dion need to buy? So if you look at the butter ratio, that's 1 to 2. So if she needs 200 grams of sugar, she'll need times 2 amount of butter, which is 400 grams. So that's how much butter she needs. And we're told that each pack has 250 grams, so we're going to divide that by 250. And we can see that's not going to be a whole number because 250 times 2 will become 500. And you can do some long division on it, so that would be that. And then we're left with 25 and 40. And then you can do something like this. And you can see that one there, 25, that is 15. And that becomes 1.6. So she needs 1.6 packs of butter, but you can't buy 1.6, so we're going to round that up, and that becomes 2. Find the highest common factor of 72 and 90. So I like to solve this using the product of prime factors, so that's going to be 9 times 8, that is going to be 3, circle that, 3, that's a prime number, that's 4 and 2, and that becomes 2 and 2. And do the same with 90, that becomes 9 and 10, which becomes 3 and 3, which becomes 5 and 2. So for 90 we have 2 times 3 times 3 times 5, and for 72 we have 2 times 2 times 2 times 3 times 3. I just get my highlighter, so these two pair up, these two pair up, and these two pair up. So that leaves me with 2 times 3 times 3. 3 times 3 is 9, 9 times 2 is 18, so that leaves me with 18 there. Question 4, the diagram shows the plan of the front elevation and the side elevation of a solid shape, drawn on a centimeter grid. In the space below, draw a sketch of the solid shape. Okay, so we can see it's 5 centimeters high. It looks like a cylinder. from the top. So it will look something like, let me just get my pen tool out. During the exam, you'll draw this with a pencil, something like that. And then the diameter or the radius, you can label either one. So you can see from there to there, the distance is 4 centimeters. And we can see, because it asks you to give the dimensions, so we're going to label the dimensions on, and the height is that there. So that's going to be 5 centimeters. Moving on to question 5. So it says shape A can be transformed to shape B by a reflection in the x-axis followed by a translation. So it's saying to go from A to B, we first reflect it in the x-axis, and then we perform some sort of translation to go that way. So step 1, we're going to reflect in the x-axis. The x-axis is this one. So in order to reflect in the x-axis, we're going to take a point. So we've got this point here, and this point here. We're going to go down to the x-axis. We're going to hop once, twice. Since we hop twice to come down here, we're going to hop twice more. And the first coordinate is going to be that one there. Now we're going to do the same with this coordinate. We're going to hop once, twice. So we're going to hop 1, 2 times to get down here. That's going to be there. And then finally for the last one, we hop 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We hop 5 times. So we're going to hop 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And that ends up there. I'm just going to rub off the guidelines because they can get in the way a little bit. And that leaves us with a shape that looks something. Of course, you'll draw this with a ruler and a pencil in the exam. It'll look something like, let me just draw this one a little bit better. It will look something like this. So we've reflected in the x-axis, and then it says followed by a translation, CD to get to B. So in order to get this shape to B, it's going to be translated. So it's going to be moved to the left, and then it's going to get moved down. So it's going to get moved to the left by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and it's going to get moved down by 1. And you want to just pick one point that you map across. You can pick any of the 3 points. I've just chosen this one in this case. So I've moved to the left by 6, so that's going to be -6, and I've moved down by 1, so that's going to be a -1. So this then becomes a -6 and a -1. Shop A sells packs of black pens, red pens, and green pens. There are 2 pens in each pack of black pens. There are 5 pens in each pack of red pen. There are 6 pens in each pack of green pens. On Monday, number of packs of black, red, and green sold are in the ratio of 7, 4, 3, and 4. A total of 212 pens or sold. This is where you want to be careful. This is the total number of pens, and this is the pack. So they're 2 different things. So we know that the packs are going to be blue. Blue to red to green. So we know as packs, so let me just write that here. As packs, that's 7 to 3 to 4. Now we're not interested in packs because it's saying work out the number of green pens sold, and they've told us the total number of pens. So in terms of pens, we know that in a black one, there are 2 pens, so that will be 14. We know that in a red one, there are 5 pens, so that's going to be 15, 5 times 3. And finally, for the last one, it's going to be 6, which is from there, times 4, which is 24. And this totals up to give me 53. So then we're going to do, it wants the number of green pens sold, so that's going to be 24 out of 53 times 212, and that gives us 96. Here are 2 rectangles. QR is 10 centimeters. Okay, so that's PQ and BC are the same. The perimeter of ABCD is 26. The area of PQRS is 45. Find the full length of AB. Okay, so let's start labeling what they've given us. So they've told us QR, which is this one, is 10 centimeters. So that means this must be the same since it's a rectangle. They've told us that BC is equal to PQ. So if this is X, this is also X. Because it's a rectangle, opposite sides will be the same. So that comes from this line here. Then it says the perimeter of ABCD is 26. Okay, so that means all sides add up to 26. The area of PQR is 45, so that means the base times height is 45. Find the full length of AB. So what it wants us to find is this length here, which I'll label as Y. And since it's a rectangle, both sides are the same. Now, we don't know anything about this triangle here. We just know it's X and Y on one side, whereas with this rectangle, we do know that this is 10. We do have one value, so we're going to start off with this one here. So we've been told that its area is 45. So to find the area of this rectangle, we're going to do base times height, so that's going to be 10 times X, which gives us 45, which means that 10X is equal to 45. If I divide each side by 10, I end up with X is equal to 4.5. Now I know what X is, I can substitute that into the X in here because it's the exact same. So we've been told the perimeter here is 26, so that means that we're going to add all the sides together. So that's going to be X plus Y plus Y is equal to 26, which means 2X plus 2Y is equal to 26. Now I know what X is, so that's 2 times 4.5 plus 2Y is equal to 26. Now 2 times 4.5 is 9 plus 2Y is equal to 26. If I subtract 9 from each side, I get 2Y is equal to 17. If I divide each side by 2, I get Y is equal to 8.5. And remember, Y is what AB was, so we can then write that down here as 8.5. Work out an estimate for the value of the square root of 63.5 times 101.7. Now with a question like this, you want to make your life as easy as possible because it is a non-calculator paper. Don't worry about does this one round up and does this one round down or anything like that. Think about square numbers. What's the closest square number you know to 63? That would be 64. And what's the closest square number you know to 101? That would be 100. And then we can write this as 64 times root 100, which becomes 8 times 10, which is 80. So the next one, 2.3 to the power of 6 is 1.48 correct to 3 significant figures. Find the value of 0.23 to the power of 6 correct to 3 significant figures. Now what they've actually done is they've hopped the decimal 1 to the left, but it's to the power of 6. So it's hopped to the left for all 6 of these numbers, because this is being multiplied by itself 6 times. So we're going to take this value, which is 148, and we're going to hop the decimal, which is currently here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times. And that's your answer. So 0.00048. That's because the decimal was hopped once to the left to get here, but then it's to the power of 6. Now, whenever you see a question with a negative indice, you can get rid of the negative indice by writing 1 over. So if I write this same thing again as 1 over, now it's a positive indice. And now I can solve that as 1 over 25. Moving on to question 9. Give your answer as mixed numbers in the simplest form. So for the first one, we're going to do 3 times 2, and that gives us 6. And then we're going to add the number at the top, so that's going to become 7 over 2. Same with the next one, I can do 1 times 5 plus 3, which gives me 8 over 5. And then that becomes 56 over 10, which I can simplify to 28 over 5. And it says, give your answer as mixed numbers. So as mixed numbers, this becomes 5 goes into 28 5 times with a remainder of 3. So that becomes 5, 3 over 5. The graph shows the equations for these two lines have been drawn on the grid. Use the graph to find estimates for the solution of simultaneous equations. So simultaneous just means where the two lines cross at the same time. So you want to be as accurate as you can with this. So you can always use a ruler. You're looking at the point where the two lines crossed. You can draw a line up to the x-axis. That's that one there. And you're going to draw a line across to the y-axis as accurately as you can. Right, so I can see that On the x-axis, that looks to me like it's between 2.2 and 2.3, so I'm going to go with 2.25. And on the y-axis, it looks like it's minus 1.3. So let me just zoom back out. So that is, on the x, it is 2.25, and on the y, it's minus 1.3. A bus company recorded the age in years of people on coach A and people on coach B. Here are the ages of 23 people on coach A. Complete the table below to show information about the ages of people on coach A. Okay, and what's the median, the lower quartile and the upper quartile? So to find the median, we can just do n plus 1, divided by 2. Now n is the number of people, that's 23. So that's where it becomes 24 over 2, and that becomes 12. So the 12th person, the 12th position in the data is the median. So if you count from left to right, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. That's the median. And to find the lower quartile, you're just going to divide the median by 2. So that's the 6th position. So if you go across, that one is the 6th position. That is 53. And then to find the upper quartile, we just do 12 plus 6. And that gives us 18. That's going to be 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. That's going to be 66. So the formulas for this are, for the median, you can use n plus 1 divided by 2. For the mean, then it becomes, you can just half that, so that becomes the quarter, and then you can just add to that to get 3/4, which is the upper quartile. That's what we've done there. So here's some information about the ages of people in coach B. Richard says that people on coach A are younger than the people on coach B. Is Richard correct? So in this case, you normally want to compare the median, represents most of the data. People on coach A are younger. Yes, that looks correct to me. So we can say the median on age on coach A is less than the median age on coach B. Richard is correct. So the next one says, Richard says that people on coach A vary more in age than people on coach B. So the question like this, where you're looking at variation, you want to look into either the range or the interquartile range. So if you were to look at the interquartile range, that would be the upper quartile minus the lower quartile. So if we do that for A, the interquartile range becomes 13, and for B, the interquartile range becomes 19. So you can see there's more variation on B than there is on A. So Richard is not correct. No, he is not correct, because 13 is less than 19. Here are 3 spheres. The volume of sphere Q is 50% more than the volume of sphere P. The volume of sphere R is 50% more than the volume of sphere Q. Find the volume of sphere P as a fraction of R. So you've always got to remember percentages are 100%. When you increase something by 50%, that becomes 150%. And as a decimal, that can be written as 1.5. I just want to make that point clear before we carry on with the question. So this is the volume of P. This is the volume of Q. Now we've been told sphere Q is 50% more. So it's going to be 1.5, whatever the volume of P is. And I've shown you how I got the 1.5 there, because it's 150%. And then it says the volume of R is 50% more, which is 1.5 times the volume of Q. So I'm just literally just writing what's in this statement here and this statement here. Find the volume of P as a fraction of R. Okay, so if you were to get my highlighter out, I can see this P here, and then I've used P there. And then I can use a different color, and I have Q here, and I have Q there, just so we have them linked. So if we start from right to left, so we have volume of R is equal to 1.5 times the volume of Q. So that's me writing that out there. Now, what is the volume of Q? Well, we can figure that out. by looking here, the volume of Q is 1.5 times the volume of P. So we can write this out as 1.5 times 1.5 times Vp. And where did this come from? That came from here. So that then becomes, well, if you write that as a fraction, that can be written as 9/4 volume of P is equal to the volume of R. And then it says find the volume of P as a fraction of the volume of R. So we want to write this in terms of P. So that becomes, we move times each side by 4. So move the 4 over and divide each side by 9. So that's going to be 4 VR, divide each side by 9. That's 4/9 is equal to Vp. So as a fraction, that becomes 4/9. Given that n can be any integer that n is more than 1, prove that n squared minus n is never an odd number. So you can factorize this and it becomes n bracket n minus 1. So you're essentially multiplying two numbers one after another. So if this was 3, this would become 2. If this was 4, that would become 3. So essentially what you will always have is that an odd times an even, which is always going to give you an even. Or you'll have an even times an odd, which should always give you an even as well. So these are the only two scenarios you can have. So then you can write that two consecutive numbers, because whatever n is, the next number will just be one less than what n is. So 2 consecutive numbers multiplied will always result in an even number. Find the exact value of tan 30 times sine 60. So for this, I tend to normally draw this out here just to make life a little bit easier. So we have sine, cos, tan, and then 0, 30, 45, 60, 90. We have 0, 1, 0, a half, root 3 over 2, root 3 over 3, root 2 over 2, root 2 over 2, 1, root 3 over 2, half, root 3, and that's 1, and then 0. So we can see that sine 60, tan 30, is that one there. So that's going to be root 3 over 3 times sine 60, which is that one over there. The root 3 over 2, root 3 times root 3 is 3, divide that by 6, and that becomes a half. 15. The diagram shows a solid shape. The shape is a cone on top of a hemisphere. The height of the cone is 10 centimeters. The base of the cone is 6 centimeters. The hemisphere has a diameter of 6 centimeters. The total volume of the shape is k pi centimeters cubed, where k is an integer. Work out the value of k. So it wants us to work out the total volume, and we know that there's two shapes. So there's a cone and then there's a hemisphere, and we've been given some formulas here. So let's start by looking at the volume of the cone. So if you look at the volume of the cone formula, that's going to be 1/3 times pi times r squared. Now we know that the radius here is, well, the diameter is 6, so the radius is going to be 3. So that's going to be 3. I know it says 3 squared, but I'm going to write it out like this, and you'll see why in a second. And then times that by the height, which is 10. And hopefully just by looking at this, you can see that the 3's can cancel out. So this 3 and this 3 can cancel out, which I can leave as, well, we're then left with 3 times 10 and pi. So that's going to be 30 pi is the volume of the cone. And now if I look at the volume of the sphere, we have 4/3. Well, one thing to bear in mind is this is the volume of the whole sphere. We only have a half because this cone is on top of half of a sphere. So we're going to times this whole thing by a half. So let me just rewrite that. So that's going to be a half times that equation, which is 4/3 times pi times the radius, which is, Again, I'm going to write it as 3 times 3 times 3 because this time it's cubed. Again, I can cancel this 3 and this 3 out, so that leaves me with volume of a sphere is 4 over 2, which I'll simplify in a second, times pi times 9. The 4 over 2 can be written as 2, so that's volume of a sphere is 2 times pi times 9, which then leaves me with 18 pi. So that means then the total volume is going to be 30 pi plus 18 pi, which is 48 pi. And it's asked us to find the value of k, where k is k pi centimeters cubed, so k must be 48. So with the next one, we've been given a lock. Each combination can have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So each one of these, there's 5 numbers on, that has 5, that has 5, and that has 5. Work out the total number of different digits that can be set. So the first one can have 5, the second one can have 5, and the last one can have 5. Now 5 times 5 is 25, and then 25 times 5 is 125. So that will become 125. How many possible 3-digit numbers can have 3 different digits? Okay, so what it's saying is, well, if this one's got 5, so if I write that out again here, so if the top one's got 5, now the second one can't have the same number the top one has, and then the last one can't have the same number the top 2 have, so we must take 1 off there, so that must then be 5 times 4, which is 20, times 3, which is 60. So given that x squared to the ratio of 3x plus 5 is equal to the ratio of 1 to 2, find all possible values of x. So you can write this out as a fraction, so this can be written as x squared over 3x plus 5 is equal to 1 over 2. Now get rid of the denominators, times each side by 2, and then times each side by 3x over 5. So if I move this over there, that will give me 3x plus 5. And if I move this over there, that gives me 2x squared. If I rearrange that, that's 2x squared minus 3x minus 5 is equal to 0. Now 2 numbers that multiply to give me minus 10 that add or subtract to give me minus 3 will be plus 5 and 2. So that will become 2x squared plus 2x minus 5. X minus 5 is equal to 0, which can be factorized to 2x bracket x plus 1 minus 5 x plus 1, and then that can be written as 2x minus 5 and x plus 1 is equal to 0. Now in order to make this 0, that's got to be minus 1, and that's going to be 5 over 2, which is the same as 2.5. So those are the possible values of x. So the expression root 3 plus root 12, we need to write that in the form a root 3. So the first one's already done for us. The second one, so we have root 3 plus, how can we write that in the form root 3? Well, we'll multiply that by root 4, so that becomes 3 plus 2 root 3, which becomes 5 root 3. No, not 5, sorry, because that's going to be a 1, so that'll become 3 root 3. And then we have b, if you want to written in that form. So writing this, if we analyze both sides separately, firstly, this can be written as 1 to the power of 7 over root 3 to the power of 7. That's how that can be written. Now 1 to the power of 7 is just going to be 1. And root 3 to the power of 7 is where you want to be careful, because that's going to be root 3 times root 3 7 times root 3 times root 3 times root 3, so that's 5, 6, and 7. So these two become 3, these two become 3, these two become 3, and this is just root 3. So these two become 9, and then 9 times 3, that becomes 27, and then we're left with 27 root 3, so that then becomes 1 over 27 root 3. Let me just write that a little bit more clearly. 1 over 27 root 3. And then to get that in the form root A or root B over C, we'll have to times top and bottom by 27 over root 3, 27 over root 3. We can cancel the 27s out because it just wants it in the form root A over root B over C, so that I can then become root 3 at the top and divide the bottom by 27 times root 3 times root 3, which is the same as 27 times 3, which then becomes 81. So given that x squared minus 6x plus 1 is equal to x minus a squared minus b, for all values of x, find the value of a and the value of b. So we have x squared minus 6x plus 1 is equal to x minus a squared. So in this case, you want to expand out x minus a squared. So that'll be x minus a minus b. And if I expand that out, that becomes x squared minus 2ax plus a squared minus b is equal to x squared minus 6x plus 1. So if you look across, we can see that this and this are similar because the x squared is obvious where that is. So in order for that to become minus 6, that means that a must be 3. Because if you do minus 2 times 3, that'll give you minus 6. So now that I know what a is, so I can write that there. A is 3. I could put a into there, so that basically becomes x squared minus 2 times 3x minus 3 squared minus b. So that becomes x squared minus 6x minus 9 minus b. Now I have this, which matches this bit, and we're left with the plus 1. How do I turn this into a plus 1? And sorry, that's supposed to be a plus there. So what do I do to plus 9 minus b to get a 1? So that must be 8. Now, so hence write down the coordinates of the turning points. So this topic comes under completing the square. So they've completed it for us. So they're saying that x squared minus 6x plus 1 is equal to x minus a, which is 3. And then we're left with b. So in order to make this 0, x will have to be 3. And then we're left with the negative a outside, which goes in there. So that's the turning point. H is inversely proportional to p. T is directly proportional to root t. Given that h is 10 and t is 144 when p is 6, find a formula for h in terms of p. So if we start off with this first bit here, which is h is inversely proportional to p, so that can be written as h is equal to k over p with a constant of proportionality, which can then be written as, well, we know what h is. The question tells us h is 10. K we don't know, and we know p is 6, so that means that k is equal to 60. And if I now move on to this bit, that's telling me that p is directly proportional to the square root of t. That can be written as p is equal to k, which is the constant of proportionality times root t. That can then be written as, well, I know p from the question is 6. I don't know what k is for this one, and I know t from the question is 144. So that then can be written as 6 is equal to 12k, which means that k is equal to 6 over 12, which is 1 over 2. So now it's saying find a formula for h in terms of t. So we know that h is equal to k over p. And we know that p is equal to k root t. And if I sub in the values for k, so h is equal to 60 over p, and p is equal to root t over 2, because that's a half. So now it wants a formula for h, so that means h is equal to something. I know what p is here, and I know p there, so I can sub that p into there, so that becomes h is equal to 60 over root t over 2, and that can be written as 120 over root t. So h is equal to 120 over root t can be a formula there. So the function x and y, f and g are such that f of x is equal to 3x minus 1. Find the inverse. Okay, so we currently have y is equal to 3x minus 1. They want us to find the inverse, so we're going to rearrange this equation to make x the subject. So that will become y plus 1 divided by 3 is equal to x. And then you need to remember to switch the signs around, so that becomes y is equal to x plus 1 over 3. So all I've done here is I've added 1 to each side, and then I've divided each side by 3. And flip the signs around. So given that 2f g of x is equal to 2g f of x, show that x squared minus 12x minus 1 is 0. Now notice it says show that, it does not say solve, so we don't need to solve this. So we need to show that this equation is true based on what they've told us here. So if you look at f g of x, so what that's saying is I need to substitute this into there. That's what f g of x is. So if I first do that, so if I substitute that into there, that will become 3 . One second, I got that right. So sorry, it says f g of x, so we're putting g of x into there. Sorry, I read that wrong. So what the question's actually saying is f g of x, so they're saying put g of x into there. And that arrow should probably come from here. So yeah, into there. So that will become 3. And into that x, we're going to sub in the g of x, which is going to be x squared plus 4 minus 1. And then for the second part, it says 2 times g f of x. So now we're going to substitute f of x into g. So that's going to become x squared, which now becomes 3x minus 1 squared plus 4. So that's the trickiest part of this question, really. And then we're going to expand the brackets out, so that's 3x squared plus 12 minus 1. And I'm just going to rub that off, that can just become 11. And then we're left with 2. So that's 3x minus 1, 3x minus 1 plus 4, which is then 2, 9x squared minus 6x plus 1 plus 4. And then that then becomes 3x squared plus 11 is equal to 18x squared. So that's 2 times 9x squared minus 12x plus 6. When you combine the 2 and the 4, that'll give you the 6. And finally, you can do minus 3x here, squared here, minus 3x squared here. And you can see how that's looking closer to what we need. So that becomes 15x squared. Minus 11 on each side. So that would be minus 12x and minus 5. So that is matching what we've been asked for in the question. And then the final question. So there are only red and green counters in a bag. A counter is taken at random from the bag. The probability that the counter is green is 3 over 7. Okay. A counter is put back in the bag. 2 more counters, 2 more red and 3 more green counters are put in the bag. The counter is taken at random from the bag. The probability that the counter is green is 3 over 11. Okay. Find the number of red counters and the number of green counters that were in the bag originally. Right, so if you draw this out as the first take and the second take, so originally we have green and we have red, and we're told the probability of green is 3 out of 7, that's there. So that means the probability of red would be 4 out of 7. And then we're told that they've added 2 reds and 3 greens, and that's then changed the probability of the green to be 6 over 13, and the probability of red will then be 7 over 13. Right, so if you look at the ratio of green to red for the first pick, green to red, that's going to be 3 to 4, so we can say that green to red as a ratio is 3 over 4, which then becomes 4g is equal to 3r, and you'll see why this is useful in a second. But I've gotten all of that from this branch up here. 3:4 ratio, which can then be written as that. And then we're told they've added, so we've got green. They've added 3 to the green. We've got red. They've added 2 to the red. And then that's changed the probability to become 6. And we're told 7. So, 6 is coming there. Sorry, I'm just having to think myself. So that's that. So they've added 3 greens. They've added 2 reds. So that becomes a 6 for the greens, because that's what the greens have become. A total of 7 from the first take. So then we can rearrange this, and that can become 7 bracket G plus 3 is equal to 6 bracket R plus 2. And that then becomes 7G plus 21 is equal to 6R plus 12, which is 7G plus 9 is equal to 6R. And then we're left with that as that. So we have 7G, let me just write that properly. 7G plus 9 is equal to 6R. Okay, and then we can see here, this can be written for 6R. So if I was to turn this into 6R, I'll have to times this by 2, times this by 2, which then becomes 8G. So I can replace this with an 8G. And if I subtract each side with a 7, so if I subtract this by 7, subtract this by 7, I'm left with G is equal to 9. So green counters is 9. And then if I come back up, and now I know how many green counters there are, I can sub that into there. So that then becomes 4 times 9 is equal to 3R, which is 36 is equal to 3R. Divide each side by 3, and that gives me 12. So red is 12. So the last question was a little bit tricky, but I hope you found that video useful, and I'll catch you in the next one.